Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about how to get rid of some of the yuckiness that I wound up with on this paint job. It's brush paint. It is Tamiya. Tamiya is pretty good paint when it's fresh, but when it starts getting a little older, it starts getting thick and gloopy, and then you try to brush it on and it kind of sticks and gloms up, and you wind up with a really crappy paint job. And two ways of avoiding it. One is to get new paint, and two, if you got older paint, thin it down. But also when you get done, well, it comes time for the wet sand. In my bowl today, I've got 2000 grit, 7000 grit, and we're going to work with them. And then there's a paper towel. Well, actually, we should use a cleaner paper towel. These are Bounty. It can be any one, as long as it's a bit rough. Amazing what you can work out with once you've got it wet sanded down to burnish the paint to make it actually smoother before you start putting clear gloss or wax or whatever on it. And this is what we're going to work on. Much of what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through fast forwarding so you don't have an hour of watching me sand. So onward, hang on to your hats. We're going into fast forward mode. And welcome to hyperspace, ladies and gentlemen, where this humble modeler has figured out how to polish at the speed of light or faster. Enjoy. Okay, you do need to be kind of careful. You can see here that I have wound up taking some of the paint off. That's going to have to be touched up. And along here, where the trim is, this is all going to be chrome through here. This is going to have to be painted up, touched up white. But right along here, you can see that I have taken a little bit of the actual bit of trim off with the sandpaper. You need to be careful that you don't do that, or if you do, it doesn't take very much off. But already you can see just by running your finger across, you can feel just how much smoother this is just with what little bit I've done. And along here, you will notice that I am doing a lot. I'm going back and forth between the 2000 grit and the 7000 grit, and then drying it off with a paper towel. When I'm using the paper towel to burnish in, I'm using a dry one. A wet one will just kind of, it'll basically disintegrate on you. You can push rather hard on the paper towel. Just be careful not to get your thumbnail in the way or fingernail and wind up pushing through to the paint. It will mar it. But you can push pretty hard on that paper towel. It's not going to do a whole lot, and it will wind up eventually coming out looking oh so sweet. Okay, we have this down. One tip, use your fingers. Feel. There's some studies that say that you can differentiate almost an atom's thickness between one level and another with your finger. You can go across and feel just how well you have done or how much you need to still work, as much by the light reflecting off of it as it is with the smooth. Some of this, once I get a coat of clear on it, after I touch up some of my goofs, get a good coat of clear on it and get it sanded and polished and everything, a lot of this will be a lot smoother as well. So let's dig out a new bottle of red instead of using the old one, which is half full of thinner by now and it goops up. All right. hood only has one coat on it. I'm using a toothpick eventually. Make it easier to hold without getting fingerprints on the new fresh paint. We're just going to give this a light coat of the new, cover up our goofs, give it a smooth finish, and this looks a lot better than what the gloopy stuff did that I was using before. Don't get too crazy with it. You'll find that Tamiya paints also dry fairly quickly, especially when it's on the brush or in the bottle. If you start seeing a bit of skim on the top, you need to clean out your brush, close up the jar, shake it, give it a good hard shake, and then you can go back to it. And now I need to get the corners, so we grab a hold of the toothpick that's stuck through, and we give it a little bit along the corners where I had my fingers to get them. And it's starting to goop a little right there in the corners. Some part of it's drying, and they try to drag a wet brush over it and it goes blop. So and there is that. I'm going to take this, set it off to the side so that it can be drying. I'm going to take this happy little thing and give it a little bit of paint along the edges where I goofed it, maybe a little bit more of a smooth finish over it. Some of the areas where it's not quite even, or the coloring isn't quite even, I use a couple of rechargeable OT lights, LED OT lights, great little devices. And rechargeable, give off some nice bright light, move them wherever. And real nice to reflect off the sides, because you can then see what you might have missed by the simple reflections and where you need to add paint. Don't need to get too much in a hurry. And some areas you want to be sure and get covered. Other areas it doesn't matter. And I'm already starting to notice in the paint, starting to get that goopiness. Clean out your brush, close it up. I'm using acrylic, so I just use water. I splash it up real good. Shake that up, and we're back to it. Off on this side. Off we go. One little part of this whole building thing that kind of not my favorite is trying to get the paint smooth and pretty. Now we're not shooting for absolute perfection unless you're doing something like something for a model show where you want it to be judged. You're going for the illusion of realism. You're not going after actual realism. You want the illusion. That's why you put a little bit of extra in the detail, like on the dashboard or something like this. I have a hair caught in the paint from an old brush. Come on, little puppy. Come on. There you go. But you want, you do the detail on the dash. Chances are, a lot of these dashboards, you're not going to see a whole lot of the detail once you get everything put together. But if you miss all of that, you're going to find that something just doesn't look right. You're not going to see the detail, but at the same time, you will see if it's not there. So you do a little bit of the extra work, you do a little bit of detailing. I love detailing the interiors and the dash. That's really fun. We're going into the detailing of the exterior because, like the chrome pieces or the extra little bit of paint here and there, really brings out the details. For example, across here I've got an emblem here. I've got the twin H power. I'm going to, instead of trying to foil it or whatever like that, I've got a chrome pin that I'm going to use on that, and I'll go along with that here shortly after I get things ready to go, where I can do the chrome pin. I'll draw across and I'll bring this out and I'm going to bring it out. Here in the doors, I've got black pins, drawing pins, that very small tip, and you just draw along the inside. You can use, they've got line black that you can use. It's I think an enamel that you can use. Smells, I can't handle the smell, so we don't do that. So I use a pin. I've got a Molotow pin, chrome pin that I use, but I can't use it for the actual drawing with the pin. The nib craps out on me all the time, so I do it, and I take a little tiny brush and I just poke it in. Give you an idea. Here's the Molotow, and I take a little pin, here, right up in here where all this is. I usually get enough paint in it that I just push that in, kind of like an ink pot, only instead of an ink pot, I've got an ink pen. So, but this is the little guy that's new chrome pin. Hobby Lobby. It's Hobby Lobby's brand. It's like $1.99. It has a fairly wide tip. It works quite well on the interior. This is the pin. I used it along all of this. On the door panels, there's a little bit of a chrome line here and here. The door handles, I used the Molotow with the paintbrush. Oh, and the seats from earlier. It came out rather nice. So that part of it's finished. We just now need to work on this. A tip, when you're working with white paint or you're working with clear paint, I have separate brushes I use for clear. I have separate brushes I use for white. Always use clean water. If I were to try to clean a brush with white or with clear in this soup, it'll come out looking red. Same thing if I was using purple, blue, whatever. This is my clear water. I usually use it for decals, clear and white, to rinse out, and also for the wet sand paper. But you can see that working with the red paint, I have wound up with red water. It's going to have to be cleaned out. It's going to need to rinse the bowl. Use whatever you want as a bowl. These are resealable food containers, about 8 ounces, and I see the crud on them. I've been using them for a couple of 3 years. They work quite nicely. If I need to put things away, just rinse them out, stack them up. If they get too cruddied up, I just go throw them away, get another one. But well, for now, maybe probably have another chapter after a while, but for right now, I need to let this all dry. I will have more when I get toward the end of it and I'm chroming and getting everything cleaned up. And this is, I have the little bit of stuff for the radiator that I'm going to do. I have a couple of little ideas there that'll make it look really, really nice. And then we have the final build, put all the chrome bits on, and hey, we're good. So, ta-ta for now. Thanks for watching.